This is a brief tour of one of my pieces. This is called As Above, So Below. It was inspired by a few different things. I am a big fan of an anthropologist called Ernesto Di Martino. He was Italian, and he did a lot of work on shamanism and also folk magical practices in southern Italy. This is the book that was quite a big kind of part of the inspiration for this. He talked about magic in southern Italy, particularly an area I lived in actually, which is Puglia. By the way, can you look at the really wonderful symbol there? That's the symbol of the publisher, but it's great. He studied folk magical practices in southern Italy and how they influenced, also how they were influenced by Catholicism. And so I wanted to show you just some of the pictures. These are descriptions of abitini, which are like little sachets or packages or charms that people would pin to their clothes or to their children's clothes to keep them safe. And they had all sorts of little charms in, and you can see the safety pins here that were used. So I found this quite inspiring. These are some very cool pictures of sort of shamanic practices that took place in southern Italy. So that was a big influence. The other thing I loved was, I'm a big fan of, I love folk horror. One of my favourite films is The Wicker Man. I really love Midsummer and films like that. And I love grubbiness and sort of magic that's not kind of, I don't know, ornate and glittery. That's not as interesting to me as the sort of stuff that looks like it's old and ancient and has been hidden away and maybe buried or something. And when I dyed all these fabrics with coffee, this one wasn't dyed, but the rest of them were dyed with coffee, they looked kind of gross. They looked like old bandages or something, and a little bit like, dare I say it, skin. So they looked almost like a hide or something. And so that really inspired me. The coarseness of the weave looked very old-fashioned, or sort of something that wasn't very refined. So that was quite useful. When I make things, often I use the materials to sort of help me decide what I'm going to do. What do they look like? What do they what sort of images do they spark, or what do they make me think of? So that's what happened with this one. And so I just started by piecing these four pieces together, the base piece and then these three, and then I added this one because I liked the frayed edge, and the contrast gave it a little bit of a visual interest and made these sort of shades look a little less drab. So that was why I added that. Then I added a few other things that I thought would be kind of interesting. I started with the As Above, So Below, which is a very ancient, quite famous occult thing to say, which basically means that the two worlds, or the liminal space and the material world, kind of mirror each other, and there's a balance there. It's about balance. So that's why one's above, obviously, as above, and then so below. So you've got that kind of balancing act. And then from there, I decided to figure out what I wanted to do with how I was going to sew those pieces onto the backing fabric. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to do it sort of starting invisibly, or maybe just start with a big kind of obvious stitching. So here I did these stitches, and what I liked most was when they looked sort of irregular, and the colour I picked sort of reminded me of blood, so I wanted it to almost look like stitched skin. And then after that, I didn't want to do it all the way over it because I thought it would be too much. It would look too uniform. The idea of this was that it was going to be like, I had the idea that maybe it was somebody creating a charm with what they had in almost like a bit of a hurry or something. So I didn't want it to look pristine, and I didn't want it to look perfect. So these are all kind of higgledy-piggledy, and the idea was, well, because it's a functional charm, or it's a functional abitini, then I don't want it to look really perfect. Then I started doing this because I liked the kind of organic form, and I'd seen recently in a magazine the use of blanket stitch in a more sort of fluid way, which I really liked. And then when I was looking at the white or the cream colour, I was like, oh, that almost looks like a bone. So I did it like this, and it looks like a spinal cord. I'm really happy with that piece. I really like it. So I kept that, and then I did this here just for a bit of balance. I think they look almost like those fossils. Are they called ermitites or something? Those sort of fossilized centipedes or whatever they were. So those looked, I loved those. These wooden buttons, I see buttons a lot in sort of mixed media and fabric art and fibre art, and sometimes I find them a bit a little sickly sweet for my taste. But this one, so I'm always reluctant. I have a lot of buttons, but I'm always reluctant to put them into pieces because I feel like they're quite used quite a lot. But this one was so rough and wooden, and because in the Abitini that Ernesto Di Martino explained in his book that buttons were used. So I added this one because I wanted to emulate that idea. And then the snake was added because I felt like the snakes are kind of, sort of, I don't know, really magical creatures. I did a ritual not too long ago online with Pam Grossman, and the purpose of that was to kind of examine and explore the iconography of the snake in different aspects of ritual and spirituality. So I guess it, and then after I did that ritual, I was seeing snakes everywhere. Literally, there was one on the road that had been flattened. I found that one with my daughter. My friend found a huge snake in her basement. And then I went to the Rehappening, which is in Black Mountain, which is a art festival that kind of commemorates the Black Mountain College of Art. And when we went into one of the installations, there was a big snake on the wall. So yeah, snakes have been happening. So I decided to add that one as a sort of tribute to snakes. Snakes scare me. I think they scare a lot of people. I come from a country where there aren't many snakes at all. So seeing them here live was quite surprising. And then this bit in the middle, I wanted something to unify the piece and the three kind of squares, or the three bits of fabric. And I didn't want it to be something big or chunky, and I didn't want it to be something too pretty. So I'd already put these in. These are little jump hoops that I bought, and they sort of looked like something you would grab and put on something, which I wanted that idea of like just using what you have. That's why the safety pins are there. And so this kind of echoed it and unified it, and then I sort of wrapped the stuff around it so it felt like it was being bound, like a binding or the kind of confirmation of a spell. So that was the idea of that. Yeah, I didn't sew it too precisely. There's lots of sort of seed, sometimes these are called seed stitch, but I think they're quite a bit bigger than a seed stitch, and there is a name for the slightly bigger one, and I can't remember what it is now. But these are just put in randomly. I've put a few down here. I didn't want them to be too obvious. I wanted you to kind of see them, and if you were to hold it, you could sort of see how it changed a little bit. But yeah, that's the piece. As above, so below.